This morning we're going to talk about serving. And the way I want to get at that is by inviting you to open up the Bible that's on the table in front of you, or you can pull it up on your phone. We're going to Mark chapter 10. Mark chapter 10, we're going to start reading at verse 32. Mark chapter 10, starting at verse 32. It's on page 898 if you have a Bible that looks like mine. Mark, if you're wondering, why do we care what Mark has to say about who Jesus is? Mark was a close friend and disciple of Peter, who was one of Jesus' closest disciples. And so everything that Mark knows about the life of Jesus, he learned from Peter. This is what he says. They were on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way, and the disciples were astonished while those who were following were afraid. And again, Jesus took the 12 disciples aside and told them what was going to happen to him. He said, we're going to go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man, that's his way of referring to himself, the Son of Man is going to be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and they're going to condemn him to death. And they're going to hand him over to the Gentiles, who are going to mock him, and spit on him, flog him, kill him. 3 days later, he's going to rise. And then James and John, it's almost like they didn't even hear what Jesus just said. And then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they came to Jesus and they said, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask you. Jesus said, what do you want me to do for you? They replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. You don't know what you're asking, Jesus said. Can you drink the cup that I drink? Or be baptized with the baptism that I've been baptized with? We can, they answered. We can. Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink. You will be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. That's a confusing statement, but we'll talk about it. But to sit at my right or my left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. Now, when the other 10 disciples heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. They got mad, really mad. And Jesus called them together and said, listen, you know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Let's pray together. Father in heaven, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts on this your scripture reading, Lord, may it be pleasing to your life, be pleasing to you and beneficial to our lives. Lord, I pray that you would sink the truth of the gospel deep within us this morning, and that you would draw us to yourself. And we pray this in Jesus' name, and all God's people say. Amen. 2 weeks ago, Alana and I, my wife Alana and I, we had this really interesting conversation. I know, I just walk right off. Sorry.
No, it's sweet.
Sorry, all those who are watching via live stream. Walk out of the room. We're just getting water.
Way more troubles than just you, so.
2 weeks ago, we had this conversation that struck me, and it's kind of stuck with me since we had it. We were headed to the gym, and when we got there, Alana jumped on the treadmill, and I did not start working out. I started talking to the gym owner, which was far better. And he and I started chatting, and then he actually ended up taking me through my whole workout, like a personal trainer. It was kind of awesome. And we got in the car afterwards, and Alana said to me, I think Mike, gym owner, I think Mike really likes helping people. He's doing the perfect job for himself. And I thought to myself, I was feeling facetious, I don't know why. I said, no, I don't think so. I think it's in Mike's best financial interest to help me in my workout. She's like, what do you mean? He's not your personal trainer. You don't pay him to work you out. And yet he spent a whole hour with you, and I saw him during that hour helping other people out too, and giving them tips and encouraging them and cheering them on. I think he really likes helping people. I said, no, it's in his best financial interest to help people. Think about it. If I don't feel like I'm reaching my goals, if I don't feel like I'm getting traction in my life, if I don't feel like I'm making progress in my physical fitness goals, I'm going to quit going to the gym. He's going to lose my membership fee. It's in his best financial interest. Anyway, over the last 2 weeks, the more I've spent time with Mike at the gym, the more I'm convinced Alana was right. Mike really likes helping people. He gets a lot of joy from encouraging and cheering people on. He loves it. I think in some ways, Mike has tapped into what psychologists call the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Stay with me. If you've got a pen in front of you or an empty piece of paper, I want to ask you, just draw on that piece of paper a 6-rung ladder. Go ahead, grab your pen in front of you and draw on that piece of paper a 6-rung ladder. Somebody from the first service might have already done it for you. Isn't that nice? Abraham Maslow was a psychologist in the mid-20th century, mostly practiced during the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And he developed what he called the hierarchy of needs. After observing people in his practice, he determined that people, in general, have these needs that they seek to meet. On the lowest rung of the ladder, the most basic rung, if there's 6, the most basic rung is what he called physical. That's the fact that we all have this need for physical things. We have a need for food, we have a need for sleep. I mean, even an infant has the ability to get those needs met. And the next rung up from physical is safety. That we all have this desire, this need within us to feel safe in our environments, wherever we are. And the third rung up was social. And that's the need within all of us to have and to build social relationships, loving relationships with friends and with family. And you know this, we all have this desire to be truly known by other people and to truly know them. And then on top of that, the fourth rung was what he called esteem. And for most of his career, esteem was the top rung that he determined within people. And that was that the highest need, the most profound need, the deepest need that anybody had in their life was to feel good about themselves. That they needed to feel emotionally, mentally good about themselves. That's the deepest need that exists in human beings. And after practicing for about a little over a decade, he added another rung, a 5th rung above that 4th rung, and he called it self-actualization. That human beings have this deep need within them, deeper than feeling good about themselves. Human beings have this deep need within them to reach their fullest potential, to reach all of their goals, physically, financially, relationally, vocationally. It doesn't matter. Everybody has this deep, profound need within them to be all that they can be. And then near the end of his career, in 1969, he added one more rung to the very top of the ladder. And the rung was called transcendence. It was the idea that the deepest, most profound need in human beings is not actually to feel good about themselves or to reach their fullest potential, but the deepest need within human beings is to realize that this life for you isn't actually about you. That this life for you isn't actually about you. You need to learn to transcend yourself. That actually the most satisfying way you can spend your life is in giving it away for others. The best thing you can do, the most deeply satisfying thing you can do with your life is to give it away to serve others. Now, I don't think you need to know about Abraham Maslow to know that that's true for yourself. Well, you know this intuitively, right? I mean, if you've ever gone and served at a soup kitchen, if you've ever done something for somebody else without expecting anything in return, you know this feeling. If you've ever gone on a mission trip, if you've ever gone to some underserved or poor area of town to go and help other people, if you have served someone else without the expectation of something in return, you know this feeling. It's deeply satisfying, isn't it? You almost get this good feeling like pumped into your brain. Even if you're in a bad mood, you go serve some people, you'll feel better. That's because when you serve other people, there's a chemical that gets released in your brain called oxytocin. Psychologists say that oxytocin is the chemical in your brain that is the bonding agent in relationship. It's what makes us feel close to other people, and it's closely connected to dopamine. It's a feel-good chemical. Here's my point. If you're a Christian, if you believe in God, you were made to serve other people. It's in your biology. You were designed to serve. Which kind of raises a question for me, and I think it ought to for you as well. If you and I were designed to serve, I mean, our biology rewards us for serving other people, giving us those feel-good chemicals in our brain. But if you were made to serve, if the deepest, most profound need you have in life is to serve, why don't we spend our whole lives serving other people? Why are we looking for every opportunity to serve others? Why is it that I have this thing inside of me that for whatever reason keeps me focused on the lower rungs of the ladder? Keeps me focused on physical needs, and safety needs, and social needs. How many of you are going to watch the Super Bowl tonight? Show of hands? Yeah. Well, how many of you are going to watch the halftime show? When you watch the Super Bowl tonight, pay attention to the commercials. Pay attention to the advertisements. Maybe take your paper home and keep a scorecard and ask yourself, which rung of the ladder are all of those commercials advertising to? It's interesting. I think advertising has tapped into that thing that's inside each one of us that keeps us focused on the lower needs. So many of the commercials you watch tonight are going to be about meeting your physical needs. Eat this food, drink this drink. I mean, even the products that aren't about your physical needs are going to be sold using your physical needs. Like this, sex sells everything on TV. So the commercials are all oriented often towards your physical needs. Think about how much news media you get inundated with constantly, 24/7 throughout the day to your phone. You know, it's specifically designed to raise ratings, not just to give you the information. It's to raise ratings, to raise your anxiety, to raise your stress, so that you will feel unsafe. It keeps you focused on that desire to feel safe in your environment. Think about the way we pursue social relationships. I mean, we long to be known and to know other people. We long to have deep, meaningful, loving relationships. And yet we go pursuing them on platforms that give us a taste of it, but not really. Our social media platforms, they kind of help us develop relationships with people, but the truth is you can't be truly known and truly know someone else with a screen in between. It doesn't work. And because it doesn't work, we keep going back for more, for more, for more. It keeps us focused on the lower rung of the ladder. We're so focused on the next rung, we're so focused on self-esteem that we stop keeping score at children's sporting events because we're worried about how we'll make kids feel about themselves. And there's no shortage of people out there who are offering services to help you become all that you can be. My point is, we are so focused on the lower rungs of the ladder. I get so turned inward on myself to meet all of those lower needs. I don't have time. I don't have time to serve other people. I don't have time to think about helping other people meet their needs. Which, by the way, being focused on the lower rungs of the ladder, not a new problem for humanity. In fact, it's not, and I want to make sure I say that because it's not like TV or the news or social media's fault that we have a hard time, serving other people. We've had a hard time with this for as long as we've existed. Humanity has always struggled with this inward focus, this pull to think only of ourselves and our needs. And Abraham Maslow wasn't the first one to posit the idea that, well, hey, the life and life to the full, the life that you perhaps never knew you've actually always wanted, is actually giving your life away. That was Jesus. You see, once, as we read, while Jesus was walking with his disciples up to the capital city, to Jerusalem, His disciples were arguing in the back behind him. This happened, we didn't read this part of the story, but it's a part of the bigger piece of the story. Jesus is listening in as his disciples are arguing behind him. And he finally stops the van, pulls over the side of the road, like a good parent would, and looks at them and is like, "What are you arguing about?" And they're all embarrassed and stare at their feet. So they're arguing about who was the greatest among them. Who's the best disciple? And Jesus chastises them. And a little later, he starts telling them, explaining to them, here's what's going to happen when we get to our destination in Jerusalem. Here's what's going to happen when we get to the capital city. And he describes all the suffering and the pain that's coming. And almost as if they don't even hear it, James and John walk to the front of the van, to the front of the bus, I guess. And they say, "Jesus, we want you to do something for us." And they essentially ask for the lower rungs of the ladder. We want to sit at your right and at your left in your coming kingdom. Because in their mind, what Jesus was coming to do was to flip the entire current power structure over. I mean, they had been told their whole lives. Moses said it. We're supposed to be a kingdom of priests. We're God's special chosen people. We're the Jews. We're the Israelites. We are his special possession. We're supposed to be on top. And now we're spending our lives being decimated by some other power and serving some other king. And Jesus, you're the Messiah. You're on your way to the capital city, for crying out loud. This is what conquering kings do. When you conquer a land, you go to the capital city, you set up your throne. Actually, often conquering kings would go right to the temple and they'd tear the place up. Interesting, Jesus does do that, but to the Jewish temple. Anyway, so their whole expectation here is that Jesus is about to overthrow, he's about to flip the whole power structure on its head. And so they say, "Jesus, we want to be at your right and at your left in that kingdom." And Jesus says, "Can you handle it though? Can you handle what it's going to cost? Can you drink my cup and be baptized with my baptism?" And the disciples say, "Yes, we can," because they're thinking, hey, listen, anytime there's a switch in political power, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some struggle. But Jesus, no pain, no gain. We're in it with you. We're ready for the battle scars. We can do this. But you see, when Jesus talks about sharing a cup and a baptism, he's not just talking about battle scars. The idea of sharing somebody's cup is about sharing somebody's faith. If Justin poisons my water, and then Gabe says, "Corey, I'll share your cup," I die, you die. Sorry. Thanks for sitting on the front, though. Same idea when it comes to baptism. I think we think of baptism, if you grew up in church, maybe you think of baptism as like it's a washing idea. It is. But baptism carries with it the idea of death. You see, water wasn't just a cleaning agent in the ancient world. Water was a symbol of chaos. The sea was a bowl of chaos that would claim the lives of people who did not respect it. And so when Jesus says, "Can you be baptized with the baptism that I'm going to be baptized with?" he's saying, can you handle the death that's going to come? He's talking about his own death. And this is where the disciples got the whole thing mixed up. They thought Jesus was going to flip the script. But for Jesus, the kingdom of heaven, this life and life to the full, the life you perhaps never knew you've actually always wanted, isn't about just getting rid of the people who are in power, exerting their will and exacting their authority on the masses so that we can be the ones who are in power, exerting our will and exacting our authority on the masses. That's not it. I love Jesus' response to the disciples. He's like, listen, guys, that's not how this is going to work. You're still thinking about yourselves. You're still on the lower rungs of the ladder. You know that the Gentile rulers, the ones who rule over you right now, that they use their power to dominate you. They use you for their own gain. That's not how it works in my kingdom. They're still concerned with esteem and actualization and security and safety. They're still concerned with the lower rungs of the ladder. They're still completely motivated by their selfishness. They're still turned inward on themselves. And Jesus looks at his disciples The two that asked the question, and I'm sure the 10 who wish they asked it first. It says, not so with you. Not so with you. That's not how we're going to run this operation. If you want to be great, you need to become least of all. Become the servant of all. If you want to be first, you got to become last. It's almost like Jesus says, look, don't you see that the life that is truly life is found in giving your life away. Life and life to the full. The life you've actually always wanted is found in serving others. And then he says, not even the Son of Man, referring to himself. Even I didn't come to be served, but I came to serve and give my life as a ransom for many. You see, your deepest need is not feeling good about yourself. Your deepest need is not to reach your goals. Your deepest need is not the social or the physical. Those are all part of it. You do need those things. Those are fine things to need. But your deepest and most profound need is to realize that this life for you isn't about you. Jesus modeled this perfectly in his life. He was a perfect example of it, constantly giving himself away for others. But then he modeled it more profoundly in his death. Because Jesus said that I came not to be served, but to serve, to give my life as a ransom for men. Now what in the world does that mean? Give my life as a ransom for men. It means that, for starters, Jesus is not just an example for us. He's not just a wise teacher. He's not just a sage. He's not just giving good advice. And I want to make that clear because this entire series could end up feeling like, here's some good advice about how to make your life better. That's not the point. That's a byproduct. That's not the point. Jesus says, I gave my life as a ransom for many. You see, the truth is that thing that's inside of you and inside of me, that natural tendency that I have to focus on the lower rungs of the ladder, the Bible calls that sin. It's this selfishness, this constant. If I live my life for me, I use my relationships, I use my job, I use my finances, I use it all to meet my physical needs, to meet my social needs, to meet my security needs, to meet it's all about me. And God's judgment for sins is death. Now, that might seem harsh. It might seem harsh to you, but here's the thing. You actually know intuitively that death is the consequence for sin. Think about it. When you live, I should put it on you, if I live my life for me, if I use my marriage to make me feel better about me, if I use my marriage just to meet my physical needs, if I live my life for me and my relationships, you know what that does? It starts to kill my relationships. Right? If you live selfishly in your relationships with other people, it begins to kill. Sin kills. Death is the result. It is God's judgment. If you live selfishly in your relationship with the dirt you live on, with this creation, it starts to kill it. It kills our relationship with creation. If you live selfishly in every aspect of your life, focusing on those lower rungs of the ladder, it will start to kill your relationship to yourself. You start getting a very skewed view of yourself. Either you're going to start having like delusions of grandeur, you think too much of yourself, or you're going to go the other direction and think too little of yourself. If you live selfishly, it kills. Ultimately, it kills your relationship with God. It separates you from Him. And the result of that is death, a death of all that is good, a death in separation from God. But your Heavenly Father loved you so much that He sent His Son to take that death in your place. That's why Jesus says, I came not to be served, but to serve and give my life as a ransom. I'm dying in your place. I'm experiencing that hellish separation from God and all that is good so that you don't have to. And now he invites you and me to live a new life. A life not living out of guilt. Oh man, Corey says I have to serve more, I have to serve more. No. It's not a life out of guilt. It is a life out of gratitude. That you have the opportunity to serve because of the way that your Father in heaven, through his Son Jesus, has served you. This is why I keep saying in this series, listen, or at least this morning, it's in your biology to serve people. Don't fight it. Stop fighting your brain. Serve other people. This is why I keep saying in this series as a whole, I think following Jesus will lead you to the life that you never knew, perhaps never knew, that you actually always wanted. I know it seems counterintuitive that giving your life away for others will lead you to the life and life to the full. But it's true. It's true. Put Jesus' words into practice. It's devotion that is a devotion of doing that makes the difference. It's action that actually matters. So, I wonder, what if we actually did this? What if you actually put Jesus' words into practice here, just for this week? Let's just do this week together, and then we'll see where it goes from there. How would it change your relationship? How would it change your marriage? How would it change your career or your vocation? To see every aspect of your life not as opportunities to meet the lower needs on the ladder in your own life, but instead as an opportunity to serve other people. Just think about it for a minute. I'm not asking you to go like all Mother Teresa. You got to move to Calcutta, India, and hold the hand of the untouchable, dying people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, what does it look like in your marriage? To see that relationship as an opportunity to serve. If you're a parent, do you spend more time talking to your kids about their swing, about how they serve? No, I'm looking at you guys. You guys like parents with kids here. You're welcome. Think about your job, your vocation, your calling in life. Recast your calling in life in terms of how what you do serves people in a way that honors God. How is what you hope to do someday serve people in a way that honors God? Not as a way to meet those lower rungs of the ladder, but as a way to transcend yourself and serve others. If you can't recast what you do for a living in such a way that it talks about how it serves people and honors God, you should consider changing careers. Right? And that's a big step. But how does what you do serve people, and what you hope to do someday serve people? What about your time? Talents. We're going to talk about treasure next week. But what about your time? If we sat down and looked at your schedule, all right, if we sat down and we looked at my schedule, would you think that I'm a person who gives my life to serve other people? And this is not like travel agent for guilt trips. That's not what I'm doing here. I just want us to acknowledge our current reality and then wonder and imagine what this world could look like, what your life could look like if you followed Jesus and gave it away to serve others. And here's why I think this matters so much. Because I think you and I, as you're about to find out if you watch the Super Bowl tonight, I think you and I are living in a world that's filled with people, and we are some of them, who go selfishly seeking after the lower rungs. And I wonder how things would change if there were more, the world needs more transcendent people who are willing to give their lives away for the sake of others. If you follow Jesus on this, you will end up living the life that you've always wanted. And the reason I know that's true is because the one who said it had the kind of life that could withstand anything that this world could throw, including death. And yet he stood firm, stood tall in the end. And he was willing to give that life for you. So, serve. Give your life for others. Let's pray. God in heaven, we thank you. We thank you for your grace and your mercy for people like us. Lord, I know that within all of us is this impulse and this desire to serve. And that often, perhaps we, even when we aren't distracted by our own sin, we wonder about where to go with that impulse. We wonder about how to serve. Lord, I pray that by your Holy Spirit, you would speak to us. That you would show us the spots in our lives right now where you are calling us to give our lives away for others. Inspire us. Empower us. Humble us, we pray, with this good news of grace and mercy that you were willing to give your life for others. May it change us and may it change our world. In Jesus' name, all God's people say.